to me. I had no clue. Everybody thought he was a great husband. So did I. We lived very well. We had children. Everything seemed like it was great. And I had to literally ask other people, what did I miss? And we were surrounded by law enforcement officers and folks because we were in a karate group that had special forces individuals from New Jersey and across the country who were specially trained, and none of us caught that he had any behaviors. It wasn't until after I put him in jail, and then I found out later that his family knew. So most often predators who are exposed have accomplices, and I say accomplices because when somebody doesn't tell who they are and they know something, then they allow the other person, they allow that predator to prey on other individuals. So I told and I continue to tell out loud what he did and what others do when they don't speak up. Everybody can't speak up in the same way. Everybody should not speak up in the same way, but I've taken this on as my charge. There were no drugs, no any of those things going on. So everybody can't do it this way. This is just the way that I have chosen to expose those who prey.
Definitely, and I'm glad that you're doing this kind of work. It's very necessary work, and I know that and I want you to share that story too. But I do want to kind of switch the conversation because I think one of the other callers was in, but I do want to keep you on the line because even some of the other conversation may tie back to that, even though some may be more creative basis. We always talk to the creative, the entrepreneurs, and the activists. But Dean, can you see who else is on the line?
Sure. Right now, I have Jamal Bradley and Cassandra, a.k.a. Trinity, standing by. I got two more people, so we got four at the door, actually. So
cool. Let's bring in Jamal and Cassandra real quick because I can tie them in to what we got right here, and then we'll go that way. So let's bring in Jamal and Cassandra, and definitely stay on the phone, Sonny, because I think that there's a way I can connect the two of y'all as well.
Okay, Mr. Bradley and Miss Trinity, you are now on with Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Welcome.
Good evening.
Hey, Jamal, and Trinity, glad to have you back. Now, y'all have this film coming up, and we talked about it last week and everything, and I think we may have some others that are with your team that'll be on the call as well later if they're not already on. But we've been talking for the last about almost an hour with Sonny Slaughter, who's been doing a lot of work in human trafficking and things of that nature. Human trafficking also has had both her own experience with being the victim of abuse as well as having her daughter that was abused by the person that she was in love with at the time. Now, y'all's film or animation actually deals with substance abuse. So I imagine that some of this conversation we've been having you can relate to, and y'all are trying to use the arts as a way to bring these kind of things to the forefront. So one of the things I wanted to bring back was if I could get Sonny back on the line, and then I want to hear y'all's comments and everything. Sonny actually had the pleasure of meeting, and I think her mom was really impressed by this, Harry Belafonte, who apparently encouraged her to continue doing the work that she is doing as a speaker and as somebody that is addressing this issue and everything. So that's the way I'll tie everything in. So, Sonny, if you could share that story about your chance to meet Harry Belafonte and how he kind of motivated you to continue this work that you're doing.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm looking forward to hearing about your work in the arts because it's really important to talk about all of these issues. Harry Belafonte was giving me an award for my work in human trafficking. That's how we met. And we happened to be at the Westin Hotel, and he had already given me my award, and it was the next day. And Dr. Barnes said, why don't you go upstairs and talk to Harry? And I was like, are you kidding me? He said, no. And I went upstairs, and his wife was sitting on the lounge chair, and he was literally over in the corner by himself. And I walked over to him, and I was standing up, and I started telling him my story. And, you know, at first he was like, oh, okay. And then he got really interested, and he pulled the chair up next to his, and he said, have a seat. And our legs were touching. So my mother is deceased, and I was in the moment thinking to myself, are you kidding me? I know my mom has got to be screaming that I'm sitting here talking to Dale. So that's what I was thinking in my head as I was talking to him. But we spent almost 2 hours together, and I was evolving my story, and he was really listening. And at the end, he said to me, are you kidding me? All of this happened to you? And there was a second part of the story. He said, in Birmingham, and I said, yes. And we talked about the Obamas and me being introduced to Charles Ogletree. But in the end, he said to me, so tell me, what are you really willing to do for others? And it was not just a question, but it was more like a charge in the way that he said it to me. And it has resonated that you're supposed to do something, because I'm not sure how many people know about the hard work and efforts of Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier. The award that I got from the Southern Christian Leadership Foundation, which is different than the SCLC, is where I got the award from, and he personally came in to give it to myself and Dr. Amelia Boynton Robinson. Dr. Amelia Boynton Robinson is the woman that President Obama was actually pushing in the wheelchair down the Selma Bridge, and she is the reason why Bloody Sunday is called Bloody Sunday, because it was her blood that ran down the street. And so his wife would not, people wanted to disturb him and I as we were talking, but she said to others, because there was somebody else sitting with her, she said, whatever they're talking about, he has grave interest in, and I will not let anybody disturb them. So we sat for almost 2 hours, just the two of us, quietly having this conversation, and it as I talk about it, it gives me chills. So when people are talking about art and work and what you all are talking about when it comes to substance abuse and the work that you are doing, just know that history is portrayed and activism is portrayed in all forms, that we as people of color have grown to tell the stories of history. And change happens when we respond to the drums that we don't even know that we are beating to, because we have been called to do such. And that is what some of what Harry was talking to me about. You don't know what you were called to do until you are sometimes in the moment, which is what when I'm telling the story, I am in the moment like I am right now. So I commend you all for the work that you are doing that needs to be shared, and we have to do these things across multiple mediums. Like Straight Talk is a necessary medium that must continue, because people might not hear it today, but this is history being laid and planted in the seeds that people will listen to later to learn about the history, like the 1619 Project. This is all historical, what we are doing right now.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Cassandra and Jamal, if y'all would share a little bit about substance so that Sonny can hear a little bit about what y'all are doing. Because like I said, we talked a little bit about it last week, and I know it involves around substance abuse and some of the stuff that y'all even went through, it revolving around substance abuse growing up in those neighborhoods that you grew up in the hard West Coast, even though Cassandra, you are now living here in North Carolina, but Jamal, you are still on the West Coast. So if you'll just share a little bit about what it all involves and what the project is, just so that Sonny can hear a little bit about what this all is about.
Yeah, so just for your listeners, I'm originally from New Jersey. So the story takes base kind of in that tri-state area, New Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia, Chester, PA. Yeah, and it's basically, it comes from me wanting to tell my own stories, working in the animation industry for close to 2 decades. I've been at Disney, DreamWorks, Sony ImageWorks. And when you're in that field, you kind of are dealing with the stories of other people. Usually they're not stories of black characters. So that's where the story stemmed from, me wanting to tell my own stories. And over the course of time, I was doing something that was more creative, more fantasy-driven, and things started to transpire, back east with family members, think people getting in trouble, selling drugs and doing other things. So my stories kind of evolved towards, telling that heartache. So it was a way for me to release some mental tension. At the time, I didn't know it, and as I was getting close to completion, peers started to take notice of, like, wow, that's a pretty deep story. And the story basically revolves around two brothers, one making a choice to sell drugs to support his family, and the child is the one that drives the main father, who chooses to sell drugs to change his substance, which is a double entendre on the title. It takes you have to change the substance in order to stop selling substance or using substance. So it takes something deeper inside of you for that to transpire, and that's kind of what the story hits on. Fully animated, all black characters, and it runs 5 minutes 18 seconds. I don't know if you want to add to anything, Cassandra. I think I covered that pretty quick.
So that was amazing. That was awesome. So I am the cheerleader of the group in that I, too, am an artist in my own right. But when I saw this film, I decided to set aside anything that I was kind of working on because I thought, just as you pointed out, Miss Funny, that this was such a powerful piece that these animators, Jamal Bradley, Bruce W. Smith, my husband Butter, Scotty, had done. And it was what he talked about, the fact that he brought our community to bear. He didn't just put together an animation and then somebody turned into a car or turned into a bird. He actually dealt with a story that oftentimes goes overlooked in the creative aspect as it relates to our community, when our community needs so much attention and a lot of times so much in the way of resources and so much in the way of, like what you pointed out, being able to detect what are certain signs. So when I saw the piece, I just started asking a lot of questions and became one of the biggest cheerleaders of the project and said, we really got to get together and talk about this. So from seeing the film, we have since decided to put together an actual conversation that will take place at North Carolina Central University by way of our sponsor, Dr. Stephanie Freeman, who's in the Arts and Humanities Department. And we are incredibly excited because we will actually screen the film. In addition to that, like what you talked about, we will, across mediums, have a discussion with not only the students, with these amazing animators that most people don't know exist in Hollywood and need to know they exist, and composer and musicians. And we will also have politicians on the stage, such as Zach Hawkins, Representative Zach Hawkins from Durham. We will have educators as well as faith-based leaders such as Dr. Chapman on the stage, all unpacking the art that we're seeing that these people have created. So it's right on head with what you talked about, Ms. Sunny.
Wow. That's amazing. I can't wait to hear more.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And, Dean, if you could bring in Bruce and Butter, too, and I think Sherry might be calling in eventually, but we can bring in Bruce and Butter as well because they're part of the team as well. Yep, looks like we've got him on. So, Bruce, I understand that you've worked on this film, and we didn't necessarily talk to you the last time, I don't think, because we had Butter and Jamal on. But, Bruce, you also have worked with the Proud family, so I know that you sometimes will talk about issues, because one of the things that Sonny has been doing is definitely being an advocate for, like, trafficking and fighting against human trafficking, as well as an advocate for what's going on with child abuse and things of that nature, and even just the way that our folks are being impacted. And I would imagine even the Proud show has touched on some of these issues. So if you could, please let us know a little bit more about your involvement with this particular project.
Well, initially when Jamal actually approached me, this whole thing is really sort of the brainchild of Jamal. And Jamal and I go back a little bit. We had some history, and we always talked about collaborating on something together. I echo Jamal's sort of sentiment in terms of, like, we've both been in this business for quite some time and have yet to really work on projects that we feel like really honestly features our voice in the mix. And so when Jamal gave me a call about wanting to get involved with this project, I always seen little bits and pieces, and we have been going back and forth. I've just been kind of like, watching over his shoulder, kind of admiring the process and everything like that. I'd been working on some other stuff in the meantime. I jumped at it. I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of like really alternative voices in animation.